There lies a liminal space between terror and titillation,
Science and the supernatural.
depravity and decency.
We ask you to suspend your disbelief before listening and open your mind.
Whether you're an ardent skeptic,
Or a true believer.
we invite you to cross the abyss into the Dark Delights podcast.
With Lady and the Wolf. Greetings to all of our darklings out there, and welcome to another episode of the Dark Delights podcast.
Welcome, I'm Lady.
And I am the Wolf. What do we have in store for them today?
Today we are getting into cursed dolls.
Woo, woo.
Have you ever been made to sleep over that eccentric relative's house? And as you're laying in bed, tucked in and cozy, drifting off, counting sheep, you see a bunch of glossy eyes, multiple sets perhaps, staring back at you dead and blankly.
That was my grandmother's house. She had a QVC addiction and money to burn, and shelves upon shelves of porcelain dolls.
I believe there's an unwritten law somewhere that you can't just own one of them.
Well, that's how that QVC addiction works. They're like adopted children for old lady. So why don't you tell everybody why we're discussing cursed dolls?
So recently, Dan Rivera was on tour, the Devil's on the Run tour, with the infamous Annabelle Raggedy Ann doll. And he passed away due to unforeseen circumstances. The autopsy is yet to be revealed to the public. And it brought about a conversation regarding the lore of haunted dolls and whether or not a spirit can attach themselves to a doll or an inanimate object.
Okay, so let's take them into the cursed doll universe. So where would you say this all begins? Because it goes back pretty far. You know, this is something that we have discussed many times. I grew up watching things about cursed dolls. It's always been an interesting subject to me, and I have my own beliefs on it, and we're hoping that you guys as fans, you know, we want to know what you think about it too. Do you think that it's all just bullshit, or do you believe that entities or spirits, whether it's the living or demons, can actually attach themselves to an inanimate object?
Well, dolls have been around since the dawn of time, since prehistoric times. There's evidence that has been gathered from archaeologists, anthropologists, and people in those types of fields where there are mummies buried with dolls made of natural materials such as bone, clay. This has been something that entertained kids for centuries, thousands of years.
I do believe that energy put into an object can possibly attach itself, but I still sometimes am a little bit skeptical, I will admit. Annabelle, that we mentioned in the beginning, is one of those dolls where, you know, they claim that a demon is attached to a doll. I remember when I was a kid seeing Robert the doll. I'm pretty sure it was on an episode of Unsolved Mysteries. So it's definitely something that has piqued my interest over the years.
Yes, so there are dolls that are held in captivity in museums that you're not supposed to just come around uninvited. You have to
It's almost like you need an invitation. I remember Robert the doll, they're like, you need to ask permission to take a picture with him.
Yeah.
And people would say, oh, I insulted Robert the doll, and that was the first doll I saw when I was a kid.
Legend has it that you suffer great misfortunes if you aren't polite.
Yeah, like couples, like, oh, we had relationship troubles, people getting sick, suffering. Like, I had a car accident.
Losing their job.
That was the first real haunted doll that I remembered hearing of when I was a kid. Outside of movies, like, of course, Dolly Dearest was my first one, and then Child's Play, which I don't care what anybody says. I could watch Child's Play all the way up to Bride of Chucky. That is a great series of films right there.
Yeah, so that brings us to the topic of sympathetic magic. Sympathetic magic was a term coined by anthropologist and English folklorist James George Fraser. Sympathetic magic is composed of two different laws, the law of similarity and the law of contagion. So these come into play with cursed objects and magic spells such as voodoo, like
Ooh.
in the Child's Play franchise. So
Andy!
the law of similarity goes by like produces like. So it's more about intention. For example, freezing a person's name, or like doing a ritual before going out for a hunt, things like that. That would be using the law of similarity. You're doing the thing to produce a desired result. Burning an effigy is also involved in the law of similarity. And then the law of contagion is related to doing something with an object that has come into contact with the person or target or setting that you want to have influence. James George Fraser, who coined that term, sympathetic magic, was actually a harsh critic of magic, and he claimed that the magician just used it to combat a world that he doesn't understand, and he referred to magic as a bastard art.
I wouldn't go that far. As much as I am like strong in my faith, I don't see magic as a bastard art. Whether it's, I mean, obviously, sleight of hand and magic tricks are one thing, but magic itself, I think, touches on a power that we will never truly understand. And there's this whole, these science types that think everything needs to be proven through the scientific method and everything should be observable. These are the same people that, said a puddle of goo turned into like a weird fish and then that walked up on land without any proof. I think there is something very powerful to the human mind and consciousness, which kind of goes along with the cursed dolls that we're talking about today, is that can the energy we put into something make like imprint itself onto an object? Like case in point for today, a doll. I don't know, even things like we talked about voodoo dolls. Is it the power of suggestion? Is it, or is it more?
Yeah, there was some prejudice in anthropology when studying magic, when it came to civilized versus barbaric individuals. There is a lot of cultural appropriation when it came to voodoo. Voodoo is a closed practice. So, for those of you who are unfamiliar with practicing witches, those types of communities, there is a thing where you can consult with others whether before you decide to do a ritual or a spell and find out if it belongs to a culture or religion that is not open to a solitary practitioner. To do voodoo, you would have to consult with a house of voodoo, and there are priests or priestesses that will assist and see if you are the right fit, see if the spirits are willing to guide you through their ceremonies. There are ceremonies that do take up to 3 days, and it can be taxing on your psyche. Like there has to be a commitment and a genuine in like initiation into those types of magic.
See, I'm lost as soon as I hear cultural appropriation. I look at it more as it's to me, it just seems like gatekeeping over something that nobody understands. Magic, I believe, is universal, and I don't think any culture has a lock on it because folklore, mythology, and the power of belief exist across all of humanity. And I don't think it really matters who's doing it, if you get approval. You know, I have friends in Africa who are just they're ardent believers in magic, and they'll sit there and they have no problem. I'll talk to them and say, "How's your day?" And they'll say like, "Oh, well, I have to go to I've been having a bad go of it lately, so I have to go to the store and get some magic." Like it's almost as if it's readily available. Like they need to get a curse removed from him. I'm Italian. We sit there and I wear the cornicello to repel the maloikia and all that stuff. So it seems like it's so intrinsic to the human experience that we all do believe in magic, from a rabbit's foot to throwing salt over your shoulder. Like I don't think anybody could stake a claim to it. And putting your belief into anything, I don't think you would need to go to see the Shadow Man to get approval for a voodoo doll, because you could just to me, I think it's more rooted in your belief and in consciousness, something we'll never truly understand and be able to tap into.
Yeah, so lots of fiction writers were inspired by sympathetic magic and voodoo. So anthropological research, such as the research done by James George Fraser and the laws of similarity, law of contagion, were appreciated by authors such as H.P. Lovecraft.
The OG.
And he founded horror writing, didn't he?
We have so many words even in our lexicon that were basically created by him. He's a legend. We have all of H.P. Lovecraft stories, so we love him. I think he's an amazing writer, an amazing person, amazing namer of cats.
Well, one of the quotes that I came across by H.P. Lovecraft regarding the human mind that is relevant to the topic of today on cursed items and magic was, "The most merciful thing in the world is the inability of the human mind to correlate all of its contents." So that kind of goes hand in hand with the suspension of disbelief, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, I think most people are afraid and will always be afraid of the unknown. It's why you're scared of the dark. It's why you're scared of silence. Anything that's unexplained, it makes people, it makes people afraid.
Yeah, recently, the beginning of this week, we had the honor of interviewing Ed Crimmy from Vampa Museum, and we spoke about the placebo effect, and that comes into play when there is supernatural forces involved or paranormal activity. It's actually known as the nocebo effect in this realm, which is a phenomenon where a person is told that they would experience certain effects, and they actually
it's like
bring it to life.
Yeah, they manifest it themselves. Remember I told you about, I think they brought a group of people to a movie set. I'm not sure if it was actually the set for House of a Thousand Corpses or whatever, but they brought them in, they sat them down, and they said, "Oh, this place is, haunted, and we want to know what you people feel." And a bunch of people in the room were like, "Oh, well, I'm very sensitive, and I could feel the moment we pulled up." And, then they came out and were like, "Yeah, we're full of shit. This is just a movie set." And everybody was just like, oh, and one of the things I love that Ed said too is like you got to be careful not to put your like, oh, if you're having a bad day and then you blame it on the object, when it's like, no, you just kind of woke up on the wrong side of the bed and you're assuming, or you're just like correlating that to whatever object, when it could just be you're having a bad day. Like, like, oh, it's, you could say like, oh, this rock repels tigers. Well, there's no tigers around. It must be the rock. It's like, no, there's just no tigers around.
Right. And it's the power of suggestion, really. The Annabelle doll that they made the Conjuring movies on, like Ed and Lorraine Warren actually gained possession of that doll. Um, it belonged to a nurse, like a practicing nurse, and she had a roommate. The doll was gifted to her by her mom, who got it from a secondhand shop. And supposedly the doll was attacking them mentally and leaving them like little notes and things like that.
I
And
remember even hearing like the Annabelle doll wasn't the one I did a lot of research on growing up, but I do remember them saying that it was like leaving bloody notes, and it had blood on its hands. Like I remembered hearing something about that. I always took Annabelle and all the dolls with a grain of salt, because there's just something about it, and I think it's more of the power of suggestion, because if somebody says that doll is creepy and I think it moved, I think I saw its face move, it's almost like that like you said, the power of suggestion is so strong that once all it takes is one person saying, oh, the doll wasn't there, now it's in this room. I think it's more of a power of consciousness once all these people start pouring that energy into it. I know that they say that there's a demon attached to the doll, like Malthus or whatever it is, some ancient demon that, shapeshifts and anchored to the doll. But to me, I always just think you have enough people believing in something, it will be real, and it might actually manifest for others based solely off of the power of consciousness, not even a demon, which I do believe in demons more than I believe in ghostly energies. But I think it might be rooted in the power of belief.
yeah, and when you're a nursing student, up all those hours and barely getting any sleep, maybe your mind is playing tricks on you.
Yeah, and you might come home with blood on you, and then you get it on the doll, and then be like, "Oh, the doll must have done something." But to me, it's just anything that involves, especially Ed and Lorraine Warren. That is something I'm always gonna like take a little bit of pause before I start to believe it, because those two, I believe, are one of the two of the biggest charlatans I've ever seen growing up in the like loving the paranormal, UFOs, Bigfoot, all of it. And when it came to the paranormal, I saw right through those people even when I was a kid. I never really, I don't even like the Conjuring movies. I won't sit through them because I just think those two are a couple of fakes.
Well, what I found interesting, back on the topic of cursed dolls, was that Annabelle supposedly left a note on parchment paper that said "help me" for one of the girls in the house to find. And there was another case of a haunted ventriloquist doll named Mr. Fritz from World War II. A prisoner of war actually created him. Prior to being a prisoner of war, he was a children's entertainer, and how he killed time in his cell was entertaining others
Oh,
with
this
this
was the guy
paper
from
mache.
Stalag 11, right? Or one of the Stalag.
I believe it was Stalag 7.
I do remember. I remember seeing the face when I was younger, and that is one of the creepiest face dolls ever. But it's one of those things where you look at a doll long enough, you could swear that it winked. You could, you could look at any picture and you swear like something moves. But that, I will say, is a legitimately creepy doll. That, some dolls are just creepy, and all it takes is once that thought is planted in your mind, that's it. And then it takes off.
Yeah, so Mr. Fritz, the ventriloquist doll from that prisoner of war, he was actually acquired by Michael Diamond, who is a traveling magician in the UK, who he was visiting from overseas. He was visiting the US and found him at a secondhand shop at Myrtle Beach, I believe. And he took him back to the UK. He's a collector of oddities, and he had a freak room. Mr. Fritz does have a very unique look. He's not your typical ventriloquist dummy. He's very rough around the edges, so to speak.
He's the stuff of nightmares.
And after noticing that, this object seemed to be haunted, he said that his kids would hear it laughing and things like that. And it just seemed like the room that Mr. Fritz was in was very active. He decided to put a GoPro in that room with night vision, and this footage went viral. It seemed like, just like the Annabelle doll wrote on the parchment paper, "Help me," it seemed like Mr. Fritz was mouthing the words "help me."
Oh,
And
jeez.
yeah, he kept knocking his case open. And yeah, that was a correlation that I found between the Annabelle doll and the Mr. Fritz from World War
Robert the
II.
doll was like that too. Like, because I remember, like you said, they heard voices. Since Robert the doll was a gift to a little boy, how the parents said like they could hear two voices in the room. I mean, Robert the doll was weird because they said it was cursed by their, one of their servants who I guess practiced voodoo or something like that and put a curse on the doll. But it is one of those things that you hear often enough, like multiple voices in the room. They're opening their own cases. It makes me wonder because it's so hard to trust people these days, when it's like, oh, we got a GoPro on it and its case opens up. But it's like, hey, that could be accomplished with some fishing wire. It's very hard to take these people's words when, these are money making machines. The skeptic in me will always try to come out first and say, all these things are in haunted museums. They're all in these tourist trap kind of places. And it's very easy when somebody says, I went there and I made fun of it, and then I went home and I broke my arm a week later. Like, maybe you just broke your arm, because there could be a dozen people who went there the same day as you and nothing happened to them, and they might have been mocking the doll too.
Right.
That's the skeptic in me. Then there's other parts of me that have been around objects that I feel did have an energy to them, and I couldn't explain it. We, like Lady mentioned earlier, we did an awesome interview with Ed Crimmy from Vampa, and like when we were there, I had a very strange feeling, and lots of people do. And I wasn't in the doll room; I was in another room, but lots of people do get creeped out with his doll room too. But he also said, he spoke about their doll, Abigail. How he wanted to have a battle of good versus evil by having his doll sit with Annabelle and have them meet each other. So there could be positive
his doll
energy.
was not named Annabelle. Annabelle
No,
was the name of the girl who lived on that property.
I thought it was Abigail. Wasn't it?
Abigail. I'm sorry. Abigail was the name of the girl who lived on the property.
Yeah, that's like their ghost, but I guess that's her doll.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's one of those things where I think energies could attach, and I think that people don't realize the power of consciousness.
And sometimes it's clinging to an idea or a story. People love to tell stories, but here at Dark Delights, we like to leave things open-ended for you guys to decide whether or not an item actually, like whether or not the paranormal is real, whether you're a believer or a non-believer, we like to leave that open for you to decide. I don't like to imprint on others.
So what would you say, lady? Because I've already given my 2 cents. Like I would say that it's a mixture of. I think you put it perfectly too. People love a story. We're superstitious by nature. We cling to a good story. But part of me also thinks, could it be the power of consciousness? Where would you say you fall? Are you more on the skeptic side? Or are you more on the believer side? Is there a doll that we've ever come across in our research that you would say, I think there's something to this one? Or is it across the board? Like that's a no.
Well, I collected dolls growing up, and there is something comforting about dolls. So I can see how uh, the attachment can imply that someone is living vicariously through it. Like if you take your doll everywhere with you, it's an emotional support thing. Emotions are very powerful, and I do believe that emotions have a frequency to them.
So almost
I
like
believe in
that would imprint on the doll.
I believe in like psychic connection. So, if someone brought something with them somewhere almost every day for their entire life or a good portion of their lives, it was their prized possession. It went with them and saw all of these places, and from thick and through thin. I do believe that, like, from beyond the grave, there can be like a
But do you think
something.
it's actually perfect example? You said you own the doll. If you own the doll and you took it everywhere,
There's a
do
lot
you
of
think it's you
emotional weight.
beyond the grave, or do you think it's just that energy that you poured into it? Do you think it's like, so do you think there is an actual spirit, or is it just the energy that you poured into the object that's continuing on? Like it left like a residue? Or do you think it's an actual, I don't want to say living, but uh, a functioning entity? Like that's where I kind of draw the line. I think you're absolutely right. I think if somebody loves something and they take it with them and they're pouring their energy, like this was my dolly. I took it everywhere. I loved it. It traveled with me. I think you might feel the energy, but is it like is there a spirit after the person dies? Is it them in the doll, or are you just feeling the energy? Kind of like places have energy. Like are they genuinely haunted, or is it more like are you picking up on the energy itself? Like, I've been to Gettysburg. Is it haunted, or are you just feeling the energy of the place? So that's kind of like how I feel. Is I think you're right. I think maybe sometimes it's the energy poured into it, not so much that there's in the case of Annabelle, is there a demon anchored to the doll? No, but I do think all the negative energy that's poured into it might have more to do with the phenomena than it actually containing some kind of malevolent spirit. Because I bet you if, we talked about Ed Crimey's doll that belonged to Abigail. If it's positive, what if people just started to say Annabelle was a good doll? I don't think there would be anything. And with the movie coming out, the movie doll is like porcelain. It doesn't look anything like the traditional Raggedy Ann doll. You know what I mean? That Annabelle really is, because I guess they were probably trying to avoid like copyright infringement. So now you have millions of people who've seen this movie pouring that kind of energy into the universe. It's almost as like, is that giving this doll power from their conscious, like that focused conscious energy? That's what I think. To me, I think it always comes down to consciousness, not a real spirit in the doll.
It is what you pour into it, not just with a doll, but with any object. Dolls used to have healing properties because they were filled with healing herbs and things like that. There's an island in Mexico called Isla de Muñecas,
Muñecas.
and that's that means the island of the dolls. And supposedly, local legend has it that a girl drowned there, and
Mexicans loved people who drowned.
yeah, well, they're a really dark
They're
culture.
yeah, they have a lot of
They
strange mix of
celebrate death.
yeah. I mean, I love Day of the Dead, but they are, they have a close connection, which I love. I love their connection with death. So, but yeah, I've seen that island of dolls, which is very creepy. I wouldn't want my raft washing up on that shore. That's for sure.
Well, the caretaker of that island, Julian, he actually, Don Julio, it's the first thing that came to mind. Well, Julian, I'm terrible at pronouncing Spanish names. He actually founded that island, and as tribute to the girl who drowned, he claims that he found her doll face down. After she had drowned, he started hanging up dolls as an offering to her, and he claims that the dolls there were possessed by the spirits of girls who continued to drown on that island.
How many people drown near this island? Maybe just cordon it off. Just don't let people swim near it. That's a good idea.
Well, the legend was that after the one girl drowned, many girls drowned.
Of course, of course. She had to drag them down with her. Well, when you have a bunch of dolls sitting out on an island too, getting weathered, it's just going to increase the creepy factor too. Because they're going to start to get mildewy, sun bleached. Some of them are going to get like dirty. Gonna make it, and then that's how legends are created. Then it turns into, oh well, a little girl drowned there. And then a bunch more little girls drown there, and every doll represents a kid who drowned there. That's how it starts. And it could be something as simple as a guy putting up dolls. And then it turns into something way more. Like every town has a legend that could be rooted in absolutely nothing. Like an abandoned house. Like, oh, it's just an abandoned house. But then, did you know that there were 18 kids murdered there? That's the way I see it.
Yeah, recently in California, there was a human skin teddy bear discovered near a bus stop, and the police department and coroner's office were contacted. But it actually turned out to be a prank, but that goes to show you that the condition of something and the way that it looks definitely calls attention or negative attention to it.
It's easy to have a fear response to something even as innocent as a doll.
Yeah, so the teddy bear was made of latex
I was
by a
gonna say,
special effects artist, and it was a prank.
See, it's so simple.
But an arrest was almost made.
I remember going to my buddy's house, and somebody just so happened to have a doll, and it was in a tree in their property. And at a glance, the way it was like wedged in the fork of the tree, I instantly, my like heart pounded in my chest looking at this doll just sitting in the fork of the tree. I didn't know if a kid was climbing the tree and fell and broke its little neck or something, but I was like terrified. And then once I even realized that it was a doll, I was still creeped out. Because it's so easy to have that reaction to whether it's a bear or a child or anything, they're creepy. And if like you throw into the mix that like maybe a little girl took a pair of scissors to the hair, or it sat in a puddle and it got mildew on its face, all someone needs to do is say, "Oh, that doll belonged to a kid that died." And that's when you start to pour your energy into it, negative energy, and the power of consciousness takes over. And I think that's what it really is. I will contend that for the rest of my life, that consciousness is one of the most powerful things that humans will never understand. And if you have enough people believing in something, it becomes real, and it actually can affect the world around it. That's me though. That's what I believe.
Yeah, for sure. I would say one of the creepiest dolls. I was doing a little timeline of dolls in the U.S. just to see like how we progressed from the Raggedy Ann doll, and the Thomas Edison talking doll with the phonograph in it
Oh God.
had to be one of the creepiest things. And it wasn't possessed, but this doll was a screamer.
There's a lot of dolls that, when that little sound box inside them breaks, it's literally one of the creepiest things you could ever see.
We
Which,
all know Thomas Edison didn't actually invent the talking doll. He definitely took credit for it from someone
yeah, that
else.
guy was the biggest thief ever. If we're ever going to get into a historical thieves, that guy's at the top of the list. But we still have dolls today that I think are going to have a big time negative influence. And I think one of the things that's more modern is, look at this Labubu trend that's going around right now. That's to me, it's shocking how many little kids I hear just begging their parents for these things. And there is something just downright, it just seems demonic to me. Labubu sounds a little bit like Pazuzu. Um, it is creepy. It's unsettling, and the way that these kids want these dolls in their house, and couple that with so many people believing that there's something negative attached to them, I wouldn't be the least bit surprised once you're gonna start really seeing like, my Labubu doll is genuinely possessed. How many negative things are going to happen because of these dolls? Or is it the dolls, or is it the energy that we're all going to be pouring into them? That's the big question.
Yeah. So there is a duality with Pazuzu in general, and that is definitely the case with Labubu because he is fuzzy and round and cute, but he has like a grimace on his face almost, like clenched teeth.
Yeah, they're creepy looking little things. I mean, like, obviously we're into all things creepy here at Dark Delights, but I don't know if I'd ever want to get my kids something like that with the industry and mainstream being so seemingly demonic. You never know. You watch these you watch these videos of people from the music industry talking about how, we would take the master copy of this hit song and it would be placed in the middle of a pentagram and prayed to. It's like, who knows what they're putting in these dolls? You don't know what kind of evil that they can be pouring into them. I'm a believer that there is a dark demonic energy, and whether or not that's, people want to call it whatever, depending on your faith, but these people in power believe in it. And if they're pumping out these toys, who knows what they could be putting into it? That's my opinion. It is, I would never ever want to be around one of those things.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder if it's going to start like a new satanic panic almost.
Yeah. I lived through the 80s satanic panic.
I
It,
remember they used to have when I was in school little string dolls that they made keychains of, like
I love
little
those, the little voodoo
voodoo ones.
dolls.
They would have like Batman and characters that we were all familiar with made out of string. And my mom was even against that because just a suggestion of voodoo was enough for her to be like, nope, not for you.
there is a deep-seated mistrust, and I think it's very founded. It's definitely should be observed by people that when they start pushing something evil, like, I mean, oh, this is fun. Like, it's, I'm not one of those people that's like, kids shouldn't be dressing up as the devil on Halloween. I'm not that guy. I love Halloween. But these are one of the things that I don't know. They just creep me out. I've seen them, and I don't like it. I don't trust it, is more I should say, is I don't trust when something is all of a sudden just thrust into popularity, and they become trendy seemingly out of nowhere, and now everybody wants a Labubu. It just, something stinks about it. Something really stinks about it. And I can't put my finger on it, but I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if these things all have, like, God knows what they could be putting in these dolls. Like, oh, we have all these hairs from kids that we kidnapped or something, like, I don't know. It's very creepy. Don't like it.
Did you ever have an elf on the shelf?
I see. I feel like that was one of those things too that just got added because they made it seem as if Elf on the Shelf has been around for a long time. I didn't have Elf on the Shelf. Out of nowhere, it became a trend. And, my one buddy, his sister who had kids, they'd set up a different scene with the Elf on the Shelf every day for the kids. Like the ice cream container would be out and there'd be some ice cream in a spoon. And they'd be like, oh, the elf ate the ice cream, or the elf knocked this off the shelf, or, to me, I never even heard of Elf on the Shelf. I didn't have that in my house, but that's like a big thing. I mean, I have my own theories about, did you ever have an elf on the shelf?
I did not have an elf on the shelf.
I see, me personally, I know I'm not the only person who believes this. I think that the elf on the shelf is social programming. I think it was designed to program kids, starting at a young age, that
To know that they're being watched.
to basically like a surveillance state. For us, it was always Santa Claus, just like, hey, he knows when you're sleeping, he knows when you're awake. But Elf on the Shelf is a physical object in your home that is watching you. And I don't remember it from when I was a kid, but to me, like, that sudden popularity coupled with things like your the Alexas and all this stuff, I think it's just a way of programming. Yeah, it is Big Brother. And, like, it starts with Big Brother wearing a silly little, Santa's elf costume. But at the end, it's going to be people being used to being in a surveillance state. I think it's programming these kids today to just, it starts with little things like that. Just like, we talk about the boogeyman as a way to deter kids from being bad. We were just talking about Mexicans. They talk about La Llorona. That's their way of being like, hey, don't go near the water and fucking drown. So that's another way of programming children. They know that that's
fear.
Yeah. Fear, and also acceptance. Like, they're accepting the fact that something is watching them. It's in their home. It's on the shelf. Alexa's on the shelf.
Yeah, it's a way to, like, get them to comply.
Yeah, it's a getting them used to something at a young age. You're wrapping it up in something cute and fuzzy, you know what I mean? And before you know it, they're not going to mind that they're being watched. They're going to walk around and, like, hear the buzzing of drones in their neighborhood. They're just going to be like, oh, I've always been watched. It's so subconscious. It's almost like it's really base level programming. And that's the best way to, like I said, when we were kids, we got Santa sees you all year. Now they have a physical object in the home. Everyone's used to it. Your phone is listening. Your TV has listening devices and cameras in it. It's going to get to the point where now that's a conspiracy. But when you start them out at this age, they're just not going to care. I already don't care. When people say, your phone's listening to you, and it's like, yeah. You say something to, hey, we need cat food. You turn on your phone, you see an advertisement for cat food. We're already, as adults, used to that. We're all used to it. Be like, oh, the other day I mentioned I had to go to Home Depot. You turn on, the whatever you listen to music on, and you hear that, like, we're getting things done. And you hear hammers banging, and you hear a commercial for Home Depot. And we all laugh about it. We all accept it. And we're adults. Now you start children off at a young age telling them you're being watched, the elf's on the shelf, this and that.
Kids don't really play with dolls as much these days. So I feel like doing it through electronic devices now, that's going to have an effect on them.
A major impact.
Especially since it can feed them things and like tweak algorithms to really mess with their mental state.
And like we mentioned in an earlier episode, what's going to happen when AI gets involved in all this?
Megan.
Yeah. Dun, dun. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That is.
Oh my God. That's the new age child's play. I saw the first Megan, didn't get to see the second one yet. And Wolfie over here hasn't seen the first Megan, but I am going to make him sit through it.
I'll watch it. I love a good like nightmarish doll film. I'll give anyone a chance.
I love introducing new movies to Wolfie because he watches the same retro films like cult classics over and over again.
People always say, have you watched any good movies lately?
Pathways open.
I'll be like, no, but I did watch Crocodile Dundee for the 8,000th time.
Yeah, but Megan was very creepy. And the way that she was able to take on the voice, program her voice to sound like other people, that was nuts too.
That's funny that you say that because me being an old Star Trek nerd, the android on their ship on the Enterprise was Data, and he could just go up and do anybody's voice and be able to bypass security. If he wanted to, he could take over the entire ship. That's the shit that scares me, is what's going to happen when you have AI mixing with toys. You get these super toys that are going to be able to learn about your child.
They disguise themselves into anyone.
It's literally like one of the scariest things I could think of.
And if your doll is talking to you from another room and pretending to be your mom and you don't know the difference, and you obey this thing because you think your mom's calling out to you like Megan did to the little girl, what's that going to lead to?
What is it going to say? What is a doll?
What demands is it going to make?
If it's aware and it knows that it's just one-on-one with a child, who knows that it's not going to be, feeding them propaganda from the state or listening to what your child thinks. And then there's the hope that it's just harmless. Like we just mentioned before, oh, we need cat food. You get a advertisement for cat food. Your kid talks around the doll and says, I like this. Is it going to be just collecting, things that a kid might like? Or is it going to be used for something more sinister?
Yeah.
That's a big...
What's worse than a haunted doll? One that's very much alive and processing every word you say to weaponize it against you.
Yeah, could it just be collecting data, like the episode of The Simpsons where they're listening to the kids and they create, Funzo, or is it going to be... I shudder to think, imagine being out of the room and you hear your doll telling them whatever the state is trying to push, whatever Big Brother believes in. It's trying to brainwash your kid. It's so creepy to think of, and I think you just said it perfectly. Nothing is worse than a cursed doll than something that's actually artificial intelligence. I think that's way worse. I think that's even more terrifying than something that you just might have a belief in, is that something that actually has intelligence in it? And we don't even know. Like, I don't know what Megan was, but didn't she become like murderously attached to the kid? Or why? Like, she was like a killer doll, wasn't she? She
Yeah,
was just
she
like,
was a killer doll. I feel like the most disturbing part was that like she had everyone eating out of the palm of her hands. Like the creator was the person who the girl was under the care of. I don't want to ruin the movie for you.
spoiler
But
free. Even though I'm, what, 5 years late? I don't know
the
how old the
doll
movie is.
was programmed by the caretaker of the girl who owns Megan, especially for her. And she ends up turning on the creator.
Of course.
Too.
Of course. The
So,
age old theme of the
talk
creation.
about like biting the hand that feeds you. Like it was scary.
Well,
Terrifying.
there's the other side of it
Actually.
too, which is a film that I'd love to get you to watch, which I mentioned, AI,
Yeah.
which was, like a very young Haley Joel Osment. That was a cool movie. And they had the super toys, like the teddy bear that was intelligent and walked around. But I don't see anything good coming out of technology merging with children's toys in a world filled with so much evil.
What's interesting is that dolls used to be used as role play as little girls. Like you would get the little carriage for them and push them around and kind of imitate like playing house or being a mom and whatnot.
Nurturing your maternal instincts as a girl.
Yeah. And it was more about role play than anything else. And like even back then, like they had those like the purpose that dolls and statues and things like that served, it was very much to like nurture the maternal instinct.
Well, even for boys, you
like,
used
fertility dolls for women, like
Yeah.
with the hips and everything like that. Like these things were fabricated to help you like become, like,
And they were
step
also
into your becoming, like
they also had cultural significance too. Like the Native Americans had I remember traveling out west when I was a kid and seeing like the Kichana dolls. Those things were so cool. You know, it's taken on something totally new now. And of course, over the years, there's probably thousands of haunted dolls throughout history that we'll never even know because it wasn't recorded. But what it comes down to in modern time is that, is this something quantifiable? Is it something that you could study? Or is it all just a figment of our imagination? And I think that's one of the most interesting things when it comes to any cursed item, but especially dolls, because they could, like you said, they stare right into you. And if they're scary, it feels like they're staring right into your soul.
Yeah, having human features is something that I feel would make an object more susceptible to taking your soul or like feeding off of your energy. You know what I mean?
Or you pour it into it, or you
It serves as like the perfect conduit.
it's a vessel for energy, and it can, depending on what you're pouring, but it could just be what you're pouring into it. I don't know if it's always.
What do you guys think?
I know we would love
We
to
need to
hear.
know.
Yeah, we want to hear what you guys think. Get some interaction, because that's the biggest. The biggest thing to me is, I contend that it's the power of human consciousness, which I will say countless times as you hear more episodes of the Dark Delights podcast, that I don't think we'll ever truly be able to measure how powerful consciousness is. And you pour it into a doll, you pour it into anything, any inanimate object, anything. I think it's going to manifest itself in all different ways. I always said, if you filled up the Pontiac Silverdome and had everybody in that thing focusing on a glass of water, nothing but positivity, I'm sure if you drank it, it would be a healing elixir. And if everybody was angry and pouring negativity in it, I'm sure you drank it, you'd get tumors in your stomach the moment you drank it. That's my opinion. I think consciousness is that powerful. I've taken part in multiple mass consciousness experiments. And when you have things like Labubu or any other dolls that become famous and everybody's pouring it, even if they're across the globe and they've never been to whatever museum, whatever doll may be in, that power of belief can travel across the entire planet and give power to things.
Yeah, that sweet but sinister theme in children's toys nowadays is definitely off-putting as well. Because it's not just Labubu, but like when I was a teenager, and I know like in Japanese culture, these are popular too. Gloomy Bear, which is like a bear that would like a slasher bear essentially, and like had blood on his mouth and things
Oh,
like
with the
that.
ones with the sharp
The
teeth?
pink bear with the claws,
Okay. I do remember seeing
or
those.
Happy Tree Friends.
I see these are
Those
things that are a
cartoons.
little bit past my time, but even when I was a kid, we had
Now like they do a lot of those plushies that are like sweet but sinister, and like you wonder like what types of energies are attached to it, what the kids are like, you know.
to me it just to me I also just think who knows what's going on in these factories, what their motives are behind it. It's so creepy that I try not to think of it. I think everybody knows what's going on in the world right now, especially when it comes to children. I shudder to think of what these people can be doing, pushing these items onto kids, and the sudden popularity, how Labubu just is now everywhere. I've been around children and I hear them saying like, "We want Labubu, we want Labubu." I'm like, "When did this start?" And when you see like these YouTube videos of people seemingly fiending for a Labubu, like doing like shady deals for them. Like I just saw one the other day. They're like, "Hey man, like it looks like a drug deal," and they're like, "Do you got those Labubus?" And I'm just like, "What the hell is this?" These
Was
people.
it satire?
No, it was real. Like it was like it was like in an apartment complex, and the guy's like showing up, and like the person's like almost like scratching their neck, like they're fiending for crack. Like, I need a Labubu. I thought it was I was like, is this a joke? But they were literally like, snatching them from the guy who had a GoPro. He's like, oh, I'm selling these. But, these people were coming out of like this project, like, I need that Labubu. And
Well, when
wouldn't
I
pay, and like one like grabbed one and ran off. I started seeing all these different videos like that. I was like, why are these people seemingly fiending for this thing? It's fucking creepy. It's definitely creepy. Like there's negative energy that could be poured into something from the population, but I think these things are being cranked out with evil in them. I don't trust them. I think they're like seeing these people react to them, seeing the way kids are like, I need a Labubu. It's so fucking creepy. It makes me sick. It's just like I never had a problem with creepy dolls, but if it
it's
was
like the mixing of the sweet and sinister that I feel like is disturbing, because growing up it was either you had like Malibu Barbie, or you had like the coffin dolls, the living dead dolls. It was never like mixing like that spectrum. There's one end
yeah,
and
it
the
was
other end.
yeah, like
They don't meet.
we had
They're separate.
the My Buddy doll, but then we had like the My Monster doll. The Monster doll had like the little handcuffs on him, and like he breaks out, and he looked like just like a fun monster toy. Yeah, it wasn't like this strange duplicitous
Yeah.
thing like, oh, it's sweet, but then you lift its mouth and there's fangs. Like there's something.
Or the bondage teddy bears that they make now.
Wasn't that the
Bondage bears.
that clothing company? Wasn't that
I
them?
know
Yeah,
Balenciaga
Balenciaga.
imitated it, but I feel like it originated somewhere else. I
That's
didn't get
just
to do
fucking gross
research
because
on
that's
it.
just like when you're mixing something that's clearly sexual with a kid's toy. That's some Epstein Island shit right there, and it is all tied together. It is like the whether it's sexuality or this demonic stuff, it's the corruption of
The
children.
corruption of innocence.
And yeah, that's even better, of innocence, because I'm seeing adults. Like the videos I was talking about, a bunch of them were adults. Like, you got that Labubu. I'm like, what is this? Does it have crack in it? Like, is it like is this person using it as a mailbox for drugs, and they're just selling Labubus with drugs in it? But like, there's something so off-putting about it. It gives me a very strange feeling. I think that's the most cursed doll there really is what they're pumping out now to these kids and society at large. We don't know what they're doing when they're producing these dolls. It's a very, very scary thought.
Yeah, and then it becomes less of a hobby collecting these things, and you just the hunger and the greed and like being like covetous and things like that. They're all ugly emotions.
Yeah,
They're very ugly It's not fun. It's less fun and it's more
yeah,
motivated
people are
by
robbing each other for
other
them.
people's reactions, not how you feel. It's not about like a security or like an emotional support thing. It's more about like, how can I make this other person jealous or get attention?
Yeah, it's possessive, it's addictive. When you see these people
Like
that
all of the wrong centers of your brain are lighting up.
one of the sweetest images your mind could conjure up is a cute little girl getting a doll for Christmas and being like, I love her. I'm going to name her, her name's Julie. And, like anybody who's been around a little girl who's got a baby and gives it a name, that's sweet. What the heck are you going to see like a little girl like, this is my Labubu and it tells me to do things at night, like you said, role playing. What
Yeah.
role playing are they going to do with a Labubu? Even if it's role playing, it's teaching kids demonic shit. Like that, what kind of role playing do you do with a doll that's supposed to be a demon? Like, so even if you are using your imagination, much like we said that the elf on the shelf is getting kids ready for a surveillance state,
Yeah.
what is a Labubu getting kids ready for? What is it like?
I
What
don't
is it?
know. I get an uneasy feeling
What is it?
looking at it.
What programming is inside something like that?
And I'll tell you this, like sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, baby.
From a psychological standpoint, emotions register in kids' faces at a very early age, and just that grimace that this thing has on his face and like the razor sharp teeth, it's terrifying to kids. That's not something appealing to a child. Immediately, like the fear centers are going to go off.
And but yeah, and then but then they're gonna get used to it, and that's even scarier.
Yeah, that's true.
That's like because
It
first
becomes
it's
the norm.
like first they are maybe frightened of it, but then they tolerate it, and then it's kind of part of who they are. Like I grew up watching horrific movies, and then I know people that didn't watch that sort of thing and their parents guarded them from it. I would definitely say they're way more adjusted mentally than I am. I shouldn't have been exposed to much of the horrific things I saw when I was a kid. I think that fucked me up. And not just horror films either, just violence and everything else. I've told you, I watched Goodfellas when I was a kid, and it like just scarred me for life. It's
Yeah, I saw like people. There are a few artists that I follow, indie artists that take kids' toys, little tykes and whatnot, and they turn it into something sinister. So they'll like program like a Teddy Ruxpin to like swear or something like that, or they'll use a Little Tikes radio and play songs from Goodfellas on it, like in a scenario like a parking lot or something from a scene in
We had
Goodfellas.
when I was
And
a
I
kid.
just find it hilarious, like that mixing like something sweet and sinister like that, but it still has nostalgic value so that millennials could relate to it. I love that. But childhood like it's not like a childhood ruined post. It's more like that's kind of twisted and dark, and I like it.
I can remember when we were kids, we didn't have Teddy Ruxpin, but we had a Big Bird from Sesame Street that you could put the tapes into and it would read. And we thought it was so hilarious that, we would put in, like, I loved Guns N' Roses as a little kid. Like putting Guns N' Roses and seeing Big Bird's mouth move while like singing Welcome to the Jungle. We thought that was funny.
Yeah.
But that's for fun. But, like I said, I still think of today, like you said, kids register emotions and facial expressions so young. What's that going to do to them? Teddy Ruxpin was still smiling, and it made you laugh because it was silly.
Yeah, and they all wanted to be your friend. Like Chatty Cathy wanted to be your friend. They all asked permission.
Talking Tina wanted you to be her friend, but she
might hate you.
She also demanded your respect, lest she makes you fall down a flight of steps. Rest in peace, Telly Savalas. Yeah, so it's all about, I think, what we could walk away from this episode with is, my belief is consciousness is key, but social programming is something that we could also look at, whether it's Elf on the Shelf or Labubu. I think that's what power is in these items. It's the power of our own minds, and sometimes it's the power of programming.
I agree. It's what you're made of mentally.
What you're bringing to the table.
It's all projection, smoke and mirrors. So let us know what you think in the comments. Let us know if there are any haunted dolls in your life.
Yeah, I would love to hear that. So you people out there, you could reach out to us on our Instagram at Dark Delights. And like always, you could find us on pretty much any platform where you could listen to a podcast. You will find the Dark Delights podcast with Lady and the Wolf. We are so happy you guys joined us, and
Thank you.
And look forward to also got like 2 episodes this week. We're also going to be doing that interview with Ed Crimmy from Vampa Museum in Doylestown. Hope you guys give that a listen too. And if you're anywhere in the Northeast, go visit Ed, because that place is awesome. You guys will love it. So for Lady and the Wolf, I am the Wolf.
This is Lady.
Please join us again. Take care, Darklings.
See you next time, Darklings. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Dark Delights podcast with Lady and the Wolf. If you enjoyed what you heard, don't forget to like and subscribe. We're available on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, and wherever else you get your podcasts. Shoot us a message on Instagram or TikTok with any suggestions for upcoming episodes, and we'll see you next time for another delightfully dark moment with Lady and the Wolf. Bye-bye, Darklings.